Today's guest is Q. He is a fitness photographer. I've known him for several years. We've gone back probably a decade or so. Met him on active duty military. He then, due to administrative reasons, had to leave the military. Went on to do human resources training and decided to follow his passion into photography. So we're going to talk about that and all the concepts that he may not be aware that he's using. Q, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
I'm hanging out, man, sipping on this like frosted whipped coffee thing that I got going on out here. It's pretty good.
Frosted whipped coffee.
Yeah, it's like a frosty, but it's instant espresso.
Yummy. I just downed a rum and Coke before we started.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking about before this interview, so you end up having to leave the military for, again, administrative reasons. You couldn't finish off your contract. So
Yep.
then you got thrusted into the civilian world and you adapted. You found a job. You're doing training, human resources. And then recently you made the move from California to Fort Worth area and do photography full time. And one thing that I've talked about in the past is the inner magician. And I think you're going to be able to relate to this, and I want you to talk on this. So this make it a little deep and make it a little personal.
Okay.
So the magician's catchphrase is abracadabra, and it translates to I create as I speak.
Ooh.
So it goes that everything that a magician wants to happen starts with a thought and a feeling. No, I want to change that card, or I want to change the ball into a duck. It starts from within. He uses his tools around him to focus his energy and to make that happen. So the magic wand focuses the energy. He uses the props or whatever. And I think that applies greatly to what you did, to where you wanted to be a photographer full time. It started inside you, and then you use the tools around you, social media, your camera, your computer, the people around you, to make that happen. And you're blowing up on Instagram and in the fitness community for doing photography.
Yeah, that's deep, dude. So I didn't know what that meant, but that this gave me chills. That's really good.
Doesn't make sense,
And
though?
it does, and it's also really weird. I was actually just talking to my wife about this last night. And I had no idea this was the route we were going. But it's really weird because I've kind of always just lived my life like that. Like if I think of something, or if I say I'm going to do something, then it happens. And sometimes I don't even realize it's happening until I look back and I'm like, holy crap, I said this was going to happen like a month or two ago, Like,
Right.
So like prime example, we're driving here in Fort Worth, and we passed this like warehouse district, and we passed this gym. It's called Pump Chasers. It's a really prominent YouTube gym. There's a really big like fitness YouTuber that owns it. And I have no connections with this dude, no relation, don't know anything about him, other than I've watched his YouTube videos when I used to do like bodybuilding and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to work with this dude. Like somehow, some way, like I didn't know they were this close, but I'm going to find a way to like work with him. And then fast forward like 2 weeks ago, I just did I did some clothing photos for them, and I did their sizing video that they use on their website now.
Oh, great.
And it was just, I don't know, like I've always felt like if I say it enough and I like firmly believe in it, like it happens. So it's crazy that like I didn't know that was the motto, and that's how it translated.
Yeah, I think a lot of people fail to realize that magic starts from within. There's magic all over the place. It's not just card tricks and props. It's the ability to create what you want.
That's so true. Man,
and if we take it that way, then we can all be magicians and create the outcomes that we want to have. Full-time photographer, doing consulting work, increasing business sales, things of that nature.
Yeah. But then also, I guess that comes with understanding the tools, right? So like what you use for a illusion, and then the reps. Like if you want this illusion or this thing to work, you can't do it one time and then expect it to be as good as it's going to be. Like, or it's not going to bring in the crowd. Like, so I guess it's some of the work too. So like if I was to reach out to that gym and my photos sucked because I never like took a lot of pictures, it wouldn't matter whether I thought it up into fruition or not. So I think that's also imperative. But yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's also being self-aware of the experience that you have, the knowledge you have, and the tools that you have,
True.
that they're there for you to use. And once you're aware enough to use them to make what you want happen, then success can happen.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's understanding your environment, the tools that you have, and then I think there's also just a willingness to put yourself out there. Like I think a lot of people don't create what they want because they're too afraid, or they just assume that it's not there for them, which
Right.
is scary. I don't know. I think often people limit themselves to what they can create or what they can show the world because they think that it's not in their sleight of hand. It's not their. They don't have that option.
Right. Or it's not understanding the tools that they have around them, and how to properly use them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So back to photography, what you're known for and what you're blowing up on Instagram for. So tell us how you got started in photography.
Oh man, so that's actually kind of an accident too. so I was active duty at the unit in Pendleton, so San Diego. For anybody that's not familiar with like military stuff, and there was a dude there who wanted to start a T-shirt brand, and he knew that I was into fashion and I like clothes and stuff, and so he was like, "Hey man, do you want to like help me out?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll help you out." And then we got to talking, and I was like, "Man, photographers are really expensive. Like, if we have like two T-shirts, and this dude wants like $500-600 for like 10 photos. That's crazy, you know?" So I was like, "Look, I'll buy a camera for like $600, and I'll take the photos ourselves. Like, I could just watch it on YouTube and figure out how it works."
Mhm.
And so I took some really awful photos for a few months, and then as I kept doing it, I was like, "Man, I kind of really like this. Like, I kind of, I really enjoy doing it." And then the T-shirt brand like went away. We did terrible. It wasn't because of the photos, but it was more so just business wise, it was not good.
Mhm.
Um, and then I told my wife, I was like, "Man, I really feel like I could try to make money doing this." And of course, my wife, she's my biggest supporter. She was like, "Well, give it a shot." So I started doing $50 photo sessions in the local community pages, just putting it out there, like, on, dude, pictures for $50, and people started paying me, and then $50 turned into $100 turned into 150, and then I was like, well, I know brands, so maybe I should reach out to more brands. And then that turned into only working for brands and doing like clothing photos and clothing photography. But then like it was fitness brands, and then I was like, I've always loved bodybuilding. I would love to do like one shoot where I'm doing like classic bodybuilding style. And I did that, and I was hooked after that, man. I was like, man, this is the move. Like classic bodybuilding photos is definitely the move.
Mhm.
So that's how I landed, and that was 2 years ago. So I've been doing it for about 2 years now.
So what was your mindset whenever you started off in photography, and then you saw some of those first photos and they weren't good, but you decided to keep going? Because there's so many people in business, and they start new ventures, and their first results are horrible, and then they
Yeah.
just quit. So what was your mindset? What was different that made you decide to keep going and pursue it more?
Um, I just really enjoyed it. So like, even if no one paid me, I would have kept doing it. But the fact was, I kept getting paid. So I was like, well, there might be something to this. Like, you know what I mean? And I think it was more so because of my customer service. I think the
Mhm.
experience is what they really enjoyed, because the photos were terrible. I mean, my first few couples photos were
Mhm.
awful. Um, but yeah, even if no one paid me, I would have kept doing it. But the fact that like I'm getting paid, and I'm getting paid pretty well to do it now, it's even more exciting, because now it's also the hunt of going to go get money, but
Mhm.
then it's also like I'm creating and I'm doing what I like to do, and then those people enjoy the product and they're showing it to their followers or their website or their clients, and it works.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I would love to do magic shows just because I can.
Yeah,
The ultimate goal is to have a place where I can perform weekly or nightly, just so I can perform.
yeah,
There was an interview I heard of David Blaine where he was talking about his criteria for picking gigs,
nice.
and he said, if this is a gig I would do for $1, I would do it, just because he loves performing so much. That's
Yeah,
not about the money. It's just about being able to do the thing that we love to do, our craft.
yeah. And so like when I was a kid, I used to skateboard, And man, it wouldn't matter. I skateboarded from like the age of 9 to 19 because I got hurt at 19 and I couldn't pay my car insurance. And I was like, well, I can't do this anymore. um, but at that point as a kid, man, I would drive an hour to find a parking garage if it was raining just to skateboard.
Hmm.
Like I would take the wheels off my skateboard and do tricks on the carpet in my bedroom just so I could do it. And then when I quit skateboarding, I never found that thing that made me feel that way again until I picked up a camera. And that's how I knew, like, yo, this is the thing. Like, this has got to be the thing because I'm right now, there's times where I'll drive to Dallas to do a photo shoot and it's free. Like, they're not paying me anything.
Hmm.
I just want to, like, I know that I can create something beautiful and I can do it and I want to do it that bad.
Exactly. I think
So,
for those that are lucky enough to find their passion and be able to make a living doing that, it's not even work anymore. You're getting paid to do what you love.
yeah, for sure.
So your focus is fitness.
Hmm.
So my thing from a magic standpoint is the whole stage, the whole theater, the whole setting. Being able to go in, test the lighting, test the sound, test the angles, see how the audience is going to experience the show. Unfortunately, there are gigs where I show up and I have no control over everything. So, how important is it to you as a photographer to go in and being able to control the environment?
Oh, dude, I control everything. And I just actually made that switch recently. So now I control everything. I even tell the model or the subject, like, listen, the only thing you have to worry about is your facial expression. Everything else I will take care of. And like I give them their cues, their clues, everything. I will spend some time looking around the gyms, see what's going on, concepts. Even if someone else has a concept, I need to
Hmm.
know what it is. So that way I know whether or not it's gonna work. Because I never want to get to the point and be like, look, I know that's your idea, but it's not gonna work, you know. Not in a negative way. It's just the client doesn't know what the photographer knows, right? And in the same sense as like the audience member doesn't know what the magician knows. So
Hmm.
like, um, but yeah, I control everything. I didn't used to, and I did not get the quality of product that I appreciated, and I never knew why. I didn't understand why. Like, man, I had this idea in my head, and I wanted this photo to come out like this, but it didn't, and I don't know why. But then I realized, oh, it's because I was doing everything that they wanted to do, or and they were letting them like pose how they wanted to pose, and I didn't want to interrupt them, or like, and so now it's like it's much more controlled.
So, is there a criteria in your mind that if you can't control these these variables, then you're just not going to do the shoot?
Certain things, yeah. So like a number of people around is really difficult. So like if
Okay.
they want to do in like a really busy area, it's like, man, every shot there's gonna be like a million people walking by, or
Hmm.
we'll have to like stop what we're doing and wait for like 10 people to walk past. Um, and then also kind of just like concepts because there's certain things that like I don't want to say I'm an artist because artists are broke, right? um, but I do if I don't have that, if I can't resonate with the concept,
Hmm.
I don't. From a business perspective, I would never want to create a product for a customer that they're not happy with. So
Right.
if I can't create a concept that they're looking for, I'll just be honest and be like, look, man, that's not my wheelhouse. Like, there's just certain things I don't do. Like, I don't do like gel lights or like different colors or like a lot of photoshopping. So for people that like want that, like, hey, can you make me like posing on a spaceship? Like, no, bro, that's not. I can't provide you that. That's not
Hmm.
me.
Right. Yeah, I think also, for me, I don't do kids shows. There are
Yeah.
magicians out there that do. I think it's knowing yourself of what you're passionate about and what you want to convey as a performer, entertainer, photographer, and being able
Yeah.
to communicate that to the client.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't like doing kids' photos, so I completely understand. And I've
Not
got
that I
three
hate
kids,
kids. Yeah.
so
It's not
no,
about
yeah, I
that.
got three kids. Well, it's just you got to be in that creative flow, and if you're not, then you're out of it because the surroundings are off, or like I try to do infant portraits once, and they look so bad, and I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this. Why is this not like? And it was just like I didn't connect. It just didn't mean like there was no like interest there. I
Mm,
know that sounds bad, but like, or like product photos. That's a good example. I cannot take product photos.
really?
I like if you send me an item and you're like, can you take the product photo? Like you've seen like in a magazine where like the bottle's just on the table and everything.
Right.
It looks like I took it with like a Nokia phone from 2005. Like I don't know. I just can't
Really?
do it. Product photos kick my butt every time, man.
So knowing yourself and knowing your audience is really big as far as getting the right image across the right, uh, yeah, image.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Yeah.
Now, one thing I've explored lately is conviction. As far
Hmm.
as magicians, whenever we perform, there's some that just kind of run through the effect or the trick, and I think at that point it almost comes across as a problem for the audience member to solve. But
Hmm.
if the magician is able to perform it with conviction, like this is real, I
Hmm.
believe in it, and it's actually
Hmm.
happening, then the audience is going to believe it as well.
Hmm.
So, is there anything you do with your subjects and your models to have them, or can you notice a difference if they're in it, if there's conviction from them to pose to be in the photo rather than somebody who's just showing up and like phoning it in?
Yeah, dude, that's huge. We actually were just talking about that recently. I have a photography mentor that I check in with like once a week, and we were just talking about that. And the biggest, it's creating the environment, right? So
Hmm,
as the photographer, you're responsible for creating the environment for the model. And so the first consideration is fitness. Oftentimes, they're not wearing very much, right? So if you got to think about like for female clients, they're already naturally a little uncomfortable, right?
hmm,
So if they're uncomfortable, you're not going to convey the emotion that you want in the photo. So it's your responsibility as the subject matter expert, the photographer, to create that environment. And it starts with your personality, your interaction, your belief that you can produce a good quality image. Um, maybe the surroundings, music, and then also little things like if I'm taking a picture and my settings are off, I'm not going to look at my camera and be like, "Oh man, that's not right." Because now I know I'm talking about my camera settings, but they're thinking that I'm talking about them.
right.
So then I've just wrecked that whole experience. And then, there's little things or like show them a little. So like I'll take a first photo and it might be okay, but I'll get super excited about it. Be like, this one right here is so sick. Take a look at this. And then they
Mm,
know like, okay, we're on the right track. Like this dude's like lighthearted. He's fun. He's
right.
creating a good environment. And then that kind of creates that conviction for them as well. But it's definitely a mutual effort on conviction when it comes to like model and photographer interaction. Like
Mhm,
if you don't believe in it, they're damn sure not going to believe in it.
right. Now, in magic, whenever we create effects and illusions, it works both ways. Where it's either we have an idea and then we work backwards from that,
Hmm.
or we come across a new method or a new toy, and it triggers something that then we then create something from that. So whenever you're setting
Hmm.
up a concept, is this something you have in your head and then you work backwards, or is it you get this new lighting piece of equipment and you're like, oh, I can do this now, or a new Photoshop technique where hey, I can do this now.
It's a little bit of both. Actually, it's a little bit of all of it. So we work backwards from the set. So like wherever the set is, we do what's called shooting backwards. So we essentially look at the whatever the background is and make sure there's nothing distracting, there's nothing weird, nothing that's going to take away from the overall focal point, which is the model. Then we put the model there and then we take the picture and then we start to create that idea. But when you're talking about like creating concepts from scratch, sometimes I come up with a concept and then it works. And then other times I come up with a concept, but then yeah, now you're back planning because you're like, okay, well, who do I know that would fit that? If I don't know anybody, how do I reach out to some random person and be like, hey, I have this concept we've never met before?
Mhm.
um, and then also it's, you learn new things. So like I'll learn something on Photoshop and I'll be like, man, I wish I would have known that for something like this. So now let's book something like that so I can go back and use that new like Photoshop technique or something. There's a lot to it. So I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's always yes.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to collaborate and have a team around you to help with either your photography or Photoshop skills or lighting or just creatively in general?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, it's so right before I left California, I had some decent clients. Like I was working for three decent like lifestyle companies shooting their products and all that stuff. And all of my clients were like, "Man, these are great photos. Like you're amazing. Like you do great work." Never heard anything negative about it at all.
Hmm.
So then I joined this. I was like, "Man, I really want to get better at photos." So I found this guy who does like a mentorship group, and I joined that. And we have an open dialogue chat on Instagram. They do meetups in different states once every couple of months. We do Zooms every week, and that was the first time someone ever told me that my photos sucked. And I was like, what do you mean they suck? Like, but it's not like that they sucked. This dude was like, these are really bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I get paid a lot of money for these. Like one client was paying me like $1,200 at the time. And I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean they're bad? And he was like, oh yeah, these are real bad. But not, it wasn't just him. It was like the other 13 people in the group were like, yeah, man, these are no good. Like,
Wow.
and so then I was like, okay. But since then, I mean, if even if you were to go, if I was to send you two photos right now, and you saw one from 3 months ago and one for
Mhm.
today, you wouldn't even believe it was the same person that took them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, everything I do is completely different now, and I'm not because of that. I make more money consistently. So
Mhm.
like you, without the right people around you, man, you're only gonna get as good as where you're at, and you're gonna know what you know.
Yeah, I recently had a potential client that I sent her some videos,
Yeah,
and she was like, "No, thanks." I'm like, "What?" Like, why not? And she gave me some feedback.
yeah,
So, which for years nobody has ever said anything negative. They've always enjoyed the shows, positive
yeah,
feedback, positive reviews. And this one lady from New York was like, "Oh, here's why." I was like, "Oh, so it really made me take a step back and look at my performance style, uh, my speech, my acting on camera, to where it really forces me to improve. And without having those people around, you're only as good as you think you are."
yeah. And it's completely up to you too, right? So like you could have gotten that lady's message and be like, "F you, lady." Like people say I'm great, I'm great. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. Back in my street performer days, on the same day, I did a show. I dismissed the crowd. Somebody came up to me and said, "The magic's awesome, but your comedy is horrible." Okay, fine.
Oh.
The very next show, same show, 30 minutes later, "You're funny, however, your magic's horrible." And
Oh man.
it's back-to-back shows, the same day, the same set. So I know some of it is perception by the audience and what they know and what they don't know.
Do you think you subconsciously focused on more of the comedy than you did the magic because of the first critique?
I could have, but also in a street performer setting, I'm paying more attention to being in the moment and how the
Yeah.
audience is reacting. So
Yeah.
maybe there was more opportunity to play with the audience and tell different jokes or better jokes, or there was a bigger reaction, so it
Yeah.
seemed more impressive and funnier than what it actually was.
You know, truthfully for me, that was the very first thing I struggled with the most. And so like one thing that so essentially when I was a kid I grew up pretty much by myself. So my mom worked a full-time job, my mom and my dad were split, and my brothers lives they moved out because they were older. So I essentially like, I grew up went to school by myself, made myself dinner, went to bed, went back. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
often I'd see my mom every now and then, but there wasn't a lot of input. And so getting feedback from people is really traditionally is really hard for me because it's like, well, you know, I've never needed advice my entire life, so why do I need to listen to you? Like,
Hmm.
so it's when I joined the group, that was the first like I almost quit the group. I was like, this is stupid. Like, I'm not just gonna sit here and have you guys just tell me how stupid I am. Like, and then I talked to my wife about it. My wife was like, yo, I mean, this is something you suck at. You need to get better. It's
Yeah.
like taking advice. And so I learned to just look at it like, look, man, I'm either gonna be offended by it and I'm not gonna get any better, or I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to get better. And that's what happened. I took notes and I'd
Hmm.
wait until I wasn't pissed off about what they said. And then I would read it and I'd be like, you know, looking at it, they're right. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's completely up to you. Like you could decide to ignore them. And I mean, you could be missing out on what life or the universe or whatever it is trying to give you.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now to where I'm expecting some sort of failure or mishaps to happen,
Yeah,
especially whenever I try something new. Like
yeah,
this is going to take a few times before it
for
no
sure.
it morphs into something usable and enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you're always gonna suck more the day before. Like, you know what I mean? Like each day you grow, yesterday you sucked. So it's as in comparison, like the new skills you get, like, and but that's
Mhm.
a good thing. You should suck yesterday, and
Right.
today you should be good, and then tomorrow you're gonna be better than you were today.
Yeah, and with that, how much do you have to constantly uh, create new ideas, new concepts, and innovate your material and your concepts? There's a lot of businesses that in the 40s and 50s aren't
Mm,
around today.
it's
And
true.
some of the biggest, most expensive companies today have only been around for the past 10, 15 years.
Hmm.
And I think it's those businesses that fail to adapt, fail to have imagination and explore new ideas are the ones that fail. So how do you stay fresh, keep fresh ideas coming to stay relevant and stay with the times as you progress further along in your photography?
So I think a couple things that how do I? Because there's like two parts to it. So all right, so for the COVID part, right? One thing that we were doing was like satellite photo sessions. So essentially, we would Zoom and make sure they had like a high like quality camera, and
Mhm.
we would screenshot. We would direct the poses, tell them how to pose, and everything like that. Screenshot it, and then we would edit the photo and send it back to them.
Hmm,
And so, like for a little while, that works. Like people were making pretty
really?
decent money doing it. Yeah, and the pictures look pretty damn good, man. I was pretty impressed. But then I think experience is really, really important. Um, I think everything that you do or everything you go through or any experience you have, you should hold on to just a little bit because it's just a tool you can use. So for like
Mhm.
me, because I've wanted to be in fashion, I studied a lot of fashion. And then because I worked with brands, I understand like brand concept, brand management. So the beauty of what I do now is a lot of the a lot of the fitness people I shoot, they're Instagram people. So they don't understand branding. So now, not only am I providing them photos, but I'm also providing them captions. So I'm saying like, oh man, so for like this photo, this would be perfect with like a caption like this, and this, and then that'll help with your content. And so now I'm getting repeat customers because they're like, if I tell him what my brand message is or what my, my motivation is for like what I'm doing, then he will create photos for content pieces. And then also like I understand like coloring, so color tones and things like that. So if someone says like, yeah, we have a launch of these t-shirts and they're this color, I can tell you, oh, well, that's not in season or you probably need this.
Mhm.
But it's all based on experience. And I think that's being relative, but also being able to change with the times with the information you know. Because information doesn't go bad. It just needs something else to be coupled with to get better. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago we gave a talk in California to some entrepreneurs
Yeah.
on marketing, and you did a part on social media.
Yeah. And back
So
then, I knew nothing about social media compared to now.
yeah, so is was that something you built on top of with your photography to merge the two?
A little bit. It's not something that like I add. Like I don't add it as like an upcharge or anything like that. I kind
Mhm,
of just provide that advice more so in a way to build that customer service experience.
mhm,
So that way they know like, okay, I can trust this dude. He's relatable and he's providing really good extra information that I didn't even ask for. Like,
right.
Um, but it's definitely something I focus on with my personal social media, which I had to start completely over. I essentially deleted everything I've ever posted and started all over again. So
Oh, really?
yeah, well, because it was like I said, apparently according to 13 other people, my photos sucked. So
1,300 people can't be wrong.
no, yeah,
Yeah. So I know having as much control again as I can over the environment for me is again with theaters and the venue and everything helps to project that image I want. So what are some of the tools that you use to either with the subject and the place to convey that feeling that you want your audience to feel through your picture? Because you get one shot that gets published pretty much, or a few shots, whereas
Yeah.
I have 30, 45 minutes, an hour to convey this message to an audience. So what do you use to get all that across, the emotion, the feeling, the brand, the messaging,
Mm.
through a photo or two?
Lighting and focus. Those are the two things.
Lighting and focus.
Yeah. So like where you put the light and how you put the light determines what someone feels when they see it. And then the focus, like where you put the focus point from the camera. So if it's a brand, the focus shouldn't be on the person's face. It should be on the logo. And then if you want it to be moody, you move the lights closer because there's a law of subject relativity or something like that with light. So whatever is closest to light will be the brightest, and then light drops off almost instantly. So the closer the light to the subject, the darker the background. So I can
Hmm.
create the illusion that in a full gym, I can make it look like it's one person by themselves.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it's just where you put the light and how you position it, you're creating this concept of something that's not real. Like I've shot in a full commercial gym and it looks like someone's literally standing by a weight rack by themselves, no one around.
It's crazy.
And so it's all lights, man. It's all and lights and shadows.
It's all illusion.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, so I always ask people like, what are you trying to convey? Like, what do we
Mhm.
want people to see? And then they'll tell me like, okay, I want it to be like this, and I'm like, all right, cool. And then I know like where to put the lights, and
Yeah.
then yeah, the other thing is focus because the eye when you look at a photo, the eye knows is automatically drawn to the sharpest part of the image. So
Mhm.
whatever the sharpest part is, that's what they're looking at.
Now, one thing that we use in magic for misdirection or for directing attention, a theory of whatever I'm looking at, the audience is typically going to look at as well.
That's
So, is
true.
there anything you do with your subjects where if they're looking in a certain direction, that changes the tone or the idea of the photo?
Yeah, for sure it does. So I'll do like a clock movement shot. So essentially, I'll take like four shots, and I'll say like straight at the camera, off to the left, down to the floor, down to the right, and then you're good. So like staring off in the distance is like contemplation, right? So they're like thinking or they're like focused or whatever. Staring straight at the camera is like intimidation. So they're like, it's powerful. They're like, they feel strong. Looking down is like somber. And like they're either like it's an emotional vibe or it's like, what I mean? So there's like, and then kind of looking up is like more like positivity and like optimism. So
Okay.
knowing where the face is looking and where the eyes go is completely like, and then also it's if they're not looking and you can't see their face, and let's say you're selling a T-shirt, that client or the consumer is now looking at the image and they're able to envision themselves wearing the shirt as opposed to staring at a pretty face and thinking it's just a pretty face wearing a shirt.
Now, I know you focus a lot on fitness, and most of the photos I've seen lately are you're in gyms.
Hmm.
Do you ever grab inspiration or ideas from outside of photography or gyms? I was listening to in an interview with David Copperfield, and all of his inspiration didn't come from other magicians or magic. It came from some of the vaudeville days, some of the musical performers, some of the movie directors, Francis Ford Coppola,
Right.
and others that helped drove him to tell a story with his magic. So it wasn't just magic inspiring magic. It was film. It was theater. It was music that inspired the magic. So is there any inspiration you get outside of photography that you can see in your pictures?
Yeah, so I don't really like looking at other photographers' stuff because I feel like you'll tend to try and create what someone else has created, and then it also creates like this comparison to where like, oh, it's not as good as so and so's.
Mm.
I think it's important to look at other people's stuff, but I don't obsess about it, and I don't try. But I look at I like incorporating the things that I like, and I've done right. So you'll see that I do a lot of like martial arts, and like I'm incorporating more of that in boxing. I like ballet and dancing, so anytime there's like fluid body movement, if I can incorporate that, I like that. Um, Sometimes like songs, just the intensity of a song or a nice ballad or something will be like, oh man, because oftentimes when I hear a song, I envision either a photo or a video.
Mhm.
So then I'm like, okay, that would be sick. Like based off of this song, if this is the premise of the song, this photo would be like the cover of it, and that would be cool. And then I try and create something from
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah.
You ever just create like cover albums just because?
No, I try to stay away from music, man. It's a lot of work.
Well, Q, that's about all I got for you. Is there anything you want to pitch or plug?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can just follow me on Instagram at QTHA photographer. THE was taken, so it's Q the photographer, THA. My website is Q the photographer as well. And yeah, that's it.
Great, great. Thanks for listening to Better Business with Magic. Hopefully, we covered some concepts that magicians use and showed how they are incorporated in photography and in other industries. If you like the podcast, like, subscribe, share it with others. And until next time.